Thank you very much. Good morning. Please can I welcome everyone to this meeting of Cabinet on Wednesday, the 24th of January from the Walton Suite in the Winchester Guildhall. The time is 9:30 a.m. My name is Councillor Martin Todd, Chairperson of the Cabinet and Leader of the Council. This meeting is live streamed from the Council's YouTube channel, and the recording will also be available after the meeting. Subtitles can be switched on, and advice on how to turn these on is set out on our website. Can everyone please ensure their mobile phones are on silent? And can I remind members to use their microphones? In the unlikely event that it is necessary to evacuate the building, the fire alarm will sound. Please follow all the instructions given to you by our team. Can I welcome members of the public to this meeting this morning? We will invite you forward when it is time for you to make your contribution. Turning to the agenda, the first item on the agenda is apologies for absence. I don't think I have any apologies for absence. Everybody seems to be here. The next one is membership of cabinet bodies, and we have no changes there. The third one is disclosure of interests. Councillor Porter.
Thank you. I have a non-prejudicial interest and non-pecuniary because I am a county councillor, so I don't think there's anything in this agenda today that is covered and creates a conflict.
Thank you very much, Councillor Porter. I need to make the same personal non-pecuniary interest as a county councillor as well. Are there any other interests? No. I have a list of requests to speak from councillors. I have councillors Reid and Horrell who want to speak on the statement of community involvement. I have councillors Wallace and Bolton who wish to speak on the parking and access improvement programme update. Have I understood that correctly? Yes, I have. Good. The next item on the agenda after that is public participation, and I'm very pleased to see Mr. Ian Tate is here today to make a deputation on a matter of general relevance. Mr. Tate, would you like to come forward and say a few words?
Thank you, Chair, for the opportunity to address Cabinet. On the 19th of September last year, I attended the Economy and Housing Policy Committee, where Andrew Palmer, Head of New Homes at the Council, gave a presentation on the Council's nutrient mitigation project. It was a completely fascinating and very illuminating presentation, and detailed that the Council was in the process of upgrading 2 of its sewage treatment works, one in Northington and the second in the Goodens Cheriton, as part of that programme. The works have now been completed, and the Council has generated 154 nitrate credits and 15.9 credits for phosphates. A kilo of nitrate credit is worth £3,250, and a kilo of phosphates is worth 100,000 if you buy them from the Grange estate. So the cost of 117,000 to upgrade those 2 treatment works has generated credits which could be sold for £2 million. I know that to my own cost. The HRA has to cover the cost of that work, but the question is, could it benefit? I appreciate that the Council has to mitigate the nutrient issue through its own development programme. However, if you look at the 6 further priority sites under investigation, potentially the credits, the nutrient credits there, range from 1.7 million up to 12 million. Don't know the cost of the works. The mind boggles over what the other 40 or so sewage treatment works may generate in credits whilst they have a value. Availability of nutrient credits is choking off development in our district, and the way that a property is assessed, if you're building a £2 million 3-bedroom house in Chilbolton Avenue, your nutrient cost of about 40,000 is the same as if you built a 3-bedroom house in Winnall for a lot less on sale. At what point the Council was looking possibly to offer credits to developers with outstanding planning permissions, but that's been put to one side. But perhaps much more important is the 48 sewage treatment works that the council owns are effectively discharging poor quality untreated or partly treated effluent into our rivers and streams, creating algae blooms and generally damaging the life of those rivers. At times of torrential rain, how many of those sewage treatment works become overwhelmed, and do they discharge untreated or poorly treated sewage into our rivers? Sorry to put you on the spot, but can the leader assure me and residents of the district that at no time does untreated or partially treated sewage be discharged into our rivers or get into the aquifer? And if not now, could he come back to me as a matter of urgency with that reassurance? Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Yeah, we're very proud of the fact that we're the first local authority, we believe, in England to be pushing ahead with this kind of improvement, and that we are, through the first two upgrades and with the further upgrades that are planned, improving water quality in our rivers, but also helping firstly enable our own house building programme as an authority, and secondly have the potential, which we are actively, and with urgency following up on, of allowing other developers to build as well. So developers who have planning permission and are just waiting for these credits in order to be able to go ahead. I'm not aware that with the way our plants are constructed, that any untreated water does enter the system. But it is a fair question, and I don't have a definitive answer on that. And I'm willing to investigate and come back to you, because, like you, I would see interventions to avoid that happening as an absolute priority. As I said, I'm not aware that it happens. I think the way that the overflow that tends to happen comes out of systems that are quite differently designed, and sewage systems that are quite differently designed. So I think it's unlikely, but I think you're right to say that we owe you an answer. But I can reassure you that despite the fact that there is a changing national policy environment, central government has introduced a few initiatives which may accelerate this process, but may also have an impact on the market value of the phosphate and nitrate credits that have been generated. But the overwhelming priority for us is to be making improvements that improve water quality. And we are also very keen not just to enable our own development, but also to unblock development for other developers. One last thought is, one of the things we have done and what we will be doing is being quite public about the proof of concept that we've delivered and the impact that it's having, because what we're quite keen to encourage is that other people are able to look at what we've done, and people other than ourselves who happen to own these kind of packet treatment works will also be able to get with the programme and be looking to further improve the water quality in our local rivers. But thank you very much indeed for the question, and thank you for the chance. And Councillor Westwood as well, who's been the portfolio holder driving this programme. So good. Yes, I'm glad that you've had the clear sense of the priority that we're giving to this programme. Good. Thank you, colleagues. We'll now move on to the main item of the agenda. The next item on the agenda is the minutes of the previous meeting held on December 13th, 2023. Cabinet, are you agreed that this is an accurate record? Thank you. We now move on to leader and cabinet member announcements. Who wishes to make an announcement? Councillor Cutler.
Thank you, Leader. I have some very good news on fly tipping, which I think is important to announce. As you will be aware, after the introduction of the charges at household waste recycling centres, fly tipping incidents increased across the county since 2019. But the latest figures for the year 22-23 shows a huge reduction in incidents in the Winchester district, dropping from 1,732 in 21-22 to 1,038, a reduction of over 40%. I think this vindicates the approach that our fly tipping team has been taking. I mean, this result is the top in the county. Only three other districts saw a reduction, and many of them have continued to see an increase. And nationally, I think Campbell had a look through all the figures, and we appear to be the 5th best reduction in fly tipping. So it really vindicates our approach to generate the fly tipping team, Gary Brown in particular, to generate as much evidence as possible to lead to interviews under caution and in many cases some prosecutions. Currently we have 29 full investigations in train. 5 are awaiting issues of summons. There will be 1 case heard next week, and in the last month there have been 2 prosecutions. The last one last week resulted in fines and costs of nearly £2,500. So I'd like to congratulate the team on the work that they've done and thank them for all their efforts, and we will continue to bear down on this scourge in our countryside, particularly in our countryside, but sometimes in our towns as well.
Absolutely. Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Cutler. Councillor Becker.
Thank you. I have very loud today. 2. I'm very pleased to announce that the council will once again be sponsoring half-term football sessions for girls and boys across the district. Sessions are £2 per child. They're open to all children aged 6 to 13 years old, and they'll be held in Week, Stanmore, Colden Common and Whiteley. So as you say, £2 a session, run Monday to Friday. Really, really great opportunity for children to get out and active during half term. And I know how difficult it is to keep children occupied during half term. Second announcement is just a follow up from my announcement at the last meeting about the Hampshire Together consultation about the hospital reorganisation, and in particular the proposed closure of Winchester A&E. Just a reminder that there is a Zoom session on Friday from 11 till 1 being run by Hampshire Together. So I would urge residents, if they haven't participated in one of those sessions already, to join one session. There are further sessions as well later in February, and some more in-person ones too. There was one a week earlier this week, but yes, very important that the Foundation Trust hear the views of our residents as much as they can. So please, residents, get involved and register for one of those sessions.
Indeed, and there will also be an additional meeting of the Health and Environment Policy Committee on the 31st of January, where councillors will be interrogating the Hospital Trust about their plans as well. Councillor Thompson.
Yes, thank you, Leader. I'm delighted to announce that this February half-term, Middlebrook Street and King's Walk will be transformed by glowing galaxies, and that's the title of this year's Light Festival. Both Middlebrook Street and King's Walk will be filled with twinkly lights, stars, planets and swirling galaxies, and even the Northern Lights. The lights will be on show from the 10th of February until the 18th of February and are free to be enjoyed by all. This builds on the previous highly successful light events that have been so well received by residents and visitors. Not only will the event provide a free activity for families to do over half term, but we also hope residents will spend time exploring Middlebrook Street and our newly refurbished King's Walk, making the most of our array of independent and creative businesses in the area. And the space theme ties in really nicely with other opportunities to create a whole galactic day out. Space enthusiasts, for example, or those looking to immerse themselves in all things science, could visit the Winchester Science Centre. or indeed drop into the cathedral to take in their Festival of the Moon, as well as visiting the Ark and gaze up at the installation called Hearth, a mass of ceramic boulders suspended in the atrium. I really hope that everyone will enjoy seeing the city lit up once again in what can be a very dark and gloomy time of the year. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. I don't believe we have any other announcements this morning. Moving on to the substantive agenda items, the next item is the statement of community involvement on pages 13 to 124 of the pack in front of us. Councillor Porter, would you like to introduce the paper?
Yes, please, and I'm delighted to do so. The purpose of the Statement of Community Involvement describes how the public, the business and interest groups can get involved in the creation of local planning policy, neighbourhood planning and the planning application decision-making process. This is essential to improve understanding and openness of the planning process, and it also identifies how people and groups can engage with the planning system in the best way. And many people find that a difficult process, and so I'm really delighted to be able to explain it a little better this morning. The SCI, the Statement of Community Involvement, requires updating every 5 years, and it's really correct to do so, as the methods by which the public like to be informed and involved can change over time, and we see an increasing use, for instance, of social media and also of the written word in email rather than in the press. So we felt that this council, although not necessary to consult on it, we did so on the draft, and that was done before Christmas. And a number of representations referred to matters which we have now made amendments and incorporated into the SCI as it sits today. A number of people also actually referred to the actions at Planning Committee, and I just wanted to make that clear that that's part of the Constitution and is not specifically part of this application, of this statement. But it is important that people understand that the whole planning process is right from the local plan stage right through to the final decisions made on the day about the planning committee interest near you. And it's important that people understand how they can get involved, and the Statement of Community Involvement explains that at every turn. It's not, this paper shows a service level which is the minimum. It can be exceeded if we feel it's necessary. It applies to the planning process, and we feel that there are differences in our enormous district which we need to incorporate. If you think many years ago, an orange sign on a letterbox was enough. Now we realise that many more people want to be involved, and we also know that a poster on the local notice board isn't necessarily the answer. We put radio adverts out, for example. So there's a lot that we can do that improves on the statements we're making here if we feel it's necessary, but this is the minimum level. The SCI starts now. It's not after the next local plan, which is something I've heard people sometimes say. It is actually starting now, and if we agree it today, it will be the new Statement of Community Involvement. The council has to have an SCI, so this council as a planning authority has a Statement of Community Involvement, but so does the South Downs National Park and so does the County Council. So if anything relating to planning, whether it's local plan, future plans, anything that relates to the particular Statement of Community Involvement for that planning authority. And just to say that it is actually important, really, that everybody understands that this is a current document. It is updated on a regular basis, and we are required to do this. And so it's important that we approve it today with any comments that are going to be made, and that this is one that is used going forward. Thanks very much indeed. Can I introduce Bethany Stokes, who wrote the paper, and Adrian Fox, her manager. So if anybody's got any queries, I might address them to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Porter. I have 2 deputations requested on this particular paper, or two councillors registered to speak, no members of the public. The first one is Councillor Reid. Would you like to come forward and make your comments or ask your question?
Thank you, Leader. I thank you for the opportunity to say a few words on this agenda item. It is important to ensure that the opportunity is to all members of the public have access to provide comments and even support on occasions. I welcome the report itself with its warts and all. The reason I say warts and all are there are still some minor corrections which were agreed to be done, but somehow have been overlooked. The terminology parish and town councils does appear in the document several times. However, several times there are still town and parish councils. It's not the adopted pattern. There are a number of typographical errors throughout the proposed document. I would hope that the final document will have been read correctly. After spending 50% of my life within the printing industry, authors are not always the right people to pick up their own mistakes. It requires a totally independent person to do that. Two little instances on page 73, local plan. I believe, I was taught anyway in school, that the start of a sentence always starts with a capital letter. On page 74, it's exactly the same. The pagination itself is very poor throughout. Pages running over. We've even got one page which has got one word on it, the end of a sentence, which typographics are, it's not the right answer. Double folios are a bit of a misleading item. Parish should be producing leaflets. It says the city council are not going to do that. But what happens to communities that do not have an elected parish? Will this be undertaken by, for instance, the town forum? Question mark. There is great reliance on the use of electronic equipment throughout the whole document. There are a large number of people across our district who are unable to use a computer for whatever reason. Therefore, there needs to be other means to ensure that all members of the public should have an equal access to be involved. Thank you, Chairman, for allowing me to speak.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Reid. And Councillor Horrell.
Good morning, and thank you for allowing me to address Cabinet this morning on this important planning matter. I have several questions and requests of Cabinet. Firstly, can the recommendation be amended to include delegated responsibility to address the typographical errors that exist through the document to ensure clarity for all residents? I'm sure that is possible. Can we also use consistent language with the new constitution, which, as you know, has been discussed thoroughly over the recent months, to add clarity for all and provide common terminology? For example, it's the scrutiny committee, not the overview and scrutiny committee. And there are several of those in the document, which I'm sure can be addressed. Please, can you advise what additional actions we will be using to support those residents who are unable to access information digitally? I know that they are viewed as a smaller group, but still important across our district. In the statement of community involvement, we say, come along to the council offices and look at copies of the local plan, which is good in paper form. But other documents you may need to pay for. This hardly seems open and full access for all, and I just question that some things will need to be paid for and the appropriateness of that decision. And finally, Chair, the conundrum of supplementary planning documents, which we raised at Council last week. We currently do not have a plan to deal with those, as I understand from the answers given by the portfolio holder last week. And we don't have a plan to deal with those in the current draft local plan. Yet this document sets out a clear process on how to produce more SPDs and in fact encourages this. And we as a council have always embraced SPDs. Surely for clarity to all residents, we need to understand exactly the status of our current SPD documents within the local plan before this document shapes further documents of that type. Would you therefore add a note to this document to ensure the status of SPDs are better understood and how we intend to process this going forward? Because currently, for those of us who pay attention to this, there seems a lack of clarity around these important elements. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Porter, would you like to respond to the comments made?
Thank you. Councillor Reid, regarding typographical errors, I think we have actually investigated the town and parish issue, and I'll ask Bethany to talk about that in a moment. In terms of pagination, that's difficult to see because you've actually got a lot of it's deleted on the page. So that's there so that people can see the changes. So it's not actually the final pagination as it stands. So I think that will be resolved when we see the final pages. Help for those unable to use a computer or any other electronic means of communication. That came up from both you and Councillor Horrell. It's made very clear in there exactly how we will talk to people, and we have always made efforts, and that's why we talk about this being a minimum level. We've always made great efforts to talk to people, and actually you can ring the planning department and get an immediate answer direct from planning department as we speak. The overview and scrutiny committee, I accept that needs to be removed as overview. It's just the scrutiny committee. And the last point about SPDs, the point I made about this is it is the paper and the statement of community involvement as would be from now. The current position is we still are supporting people with SPDs, and we won't change that until we know what the outcome is. We can make an amendment to the SCI at that point, but at the moment we are where we are. And this is the situation as we find ourselves. That's what I believe. I've just checked with Mr. Fox that he feels the same way.
Thank you, Councillor Porter. That is correct. We're waiting for secondary legislation to clarify exactly the status of SPDs. Until that happens, I can't predict what will happen or won't happen. So it'd be wrong of me to put something in the document to reflect that. And obviously, if the system changes, it changes. And obviously, we'll have to adapt. But like I say, we are waiting for secondary legislation.
Thank you. And Stokes, would you like to just explain the town and parish and town conversation?
Yes, of course. Thank you, Councillor Porter, and thank you for your comments. Having a little look at parish and town, the use in which way round it is, I believe that all the changes have been made, but if you can point out where you think that hasn't happened, I would be grateful if you could email me separately and I'll make sure that they are correct. In every other SCI across the UK, they use the term town and parish, but in our constitution, we use parish and town. So for consistency, we chose parish and town council as the right way round. And in terms of the other areas of consistency, I'll make sure that the scrutiny committee is corrected as well. And Adrian and myself will take another look at those just to ensure that it's all correct.
Thank you for your work on this. It's been extensive. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Porter. And I think the issue may be that some of the text that's been deleted is still shown if you do a search and replace. It doesn't actually mean it's in the document. It's something that is shown that it will be removed if you look at how the document is laid out. Cabinet, are there any other questions that relate to this particular paper? I do have a question for Mr. Fox, which is, and maybe Councillor Porter, which is presumably this may be one where when new regulations come forward that change the legal framework that we're operating in, and there is a bit of we are dealing with a bit of chaotic situation actually in terms of how the government is handling the planning process, that this may need to come back sooner than it normally would. But am I right to understand that if there's a substantive change to regulations and new processes put in place, that we will see a revised SCO?
That's correct, Leader. Like I say, we are in a period of time of flux where things are changing rapidly. And obviously, if there is substantial changes, we can adapt it. Obviously, the key thing is that from a local plan perspective, we need to have an up-to-date SCI. And obviously, that's what we will do, and that's what we'll continue to do. So we'll monitor the situation as and when, obviously, the situation becomes clearer.
Thank you very much indeed. And then actually, there was one other thing I wanted to clarify on the subject of supplementary planning documents. My understanding is that a passed local plan with an adopted supplementary planning policy associated with it is not something that the government can unilaterally override. And indeed, there are some fairly major legal arguments going on at the moment in terms of adopted local plans where the government's tried to retrospectively change guidance. So there is no legal threat or jeopardy to our existing supplementary planning documents that we know of for as long as the current local plan is in place. Any change to that relates to future local plans. Is my understanding correct?
That's correct, Leader. Obviously the SPDs remain in force, which will obviously link to a parent policy in the adopted local plan, and they will remain in force obviously up until obviously the local plan is replaced. The key thing is obviously knowing the future of the SPDs in terms of obviously what the secondary legislation will let us do or don't do. So that's what we're waiting for.
Thank you very much indeed. So colleagues, we've had any, I've asked you for questions. Do we have any debate? Councillor Cutler.
There's not so much a debate about the paper, but more about the process of presenting the amended documents. I just wonder if I think it's really useful to see where the changes are. It may be helpful to actually have two appendices, one being the final document and one showing the amendments that have been made as they go along, and that would help clarify some of the questions that have come from other councillors. They'll be able to see the final thing, the pagination will have been sorted, and that side of things. But I think it is exceedingly helpful to publish those changes. So I don't think we need to lose that, but it might be quite useful to see the final one as well.
Thank you, Councillor Cutler. Yes, that's a very good point. Any final comments? Unless there's any other debate, which I'm not seeing. Any final comments, Councillor?
No, that's useful feedback because we wanted the public to be able to see where changes have been made for the purpose of this cabinet meeting. But you're right, it could have been useful. But I hope that Councillor Reid will understand that the pagination will change as a result of taking out the deleted items. And it is important that our agents and all the other people that are likely to look at this see clearly what those deleted items are. So I think having the both published would be useful at this point. Thank you very much. We'll investigate that definitely.
Thank you very much indeed. Right. And what I would like to, so I think we're in a fairly clear position. The recommendations are clear. It's very good to see that the council's ongoing commitment to openness and transparency is still in place. I'm afraid we're done, Councillor Porter. What I would like to do is actually thank Mr. Fox and his team for the way that you've taken the statement of community involvement and used it to have a particularly open and involving approach to consultation in the development of the local plan. And it's been very gratifying to see that recognised with the awards that you've won I think from the RTPI, for the quality of consultation that you've used. So to a certain extent, we're always in your hands where we write a fairly dry and sterile, albeit useful guide to how we wish to involve people and how we wish people to have a say in how our planning process develops. But I would like to thank you on behalf of Cabinet for the great work you've done of taking those sterile guidelines and running a very involving, high participation, engaging approach to making sure the voices of local people are heard in our plan development process. So Cabinet, the decision in front of us is to accept the recommended changes to the Statement of Community Involvement as set out in Appendix 1, arising from the public consultation, and to adopt the Statement of Community Involvement dated January 2024, subject to the folding in of the tracked changes that are marked attached at Appendix 1 to this report. Are those two recommendations agreed?
Agree.
Thank you very much indeed. We now move on to the parking and access improvement update. Councillor Lerney, would you like to say some words to introduce the paper?
Thank you. I'll just let my colleagues join us at the table. Yep. The provision and management of parking, whether that be for bikes, buses or cars, is an important element of supporting a vibrant economy, but also how we manage the externalities of road transport, particularly air quality and the output of carbon. As a council, we aim to provide high quality, safe, easy to use parking in convenient locations across the district, while encouraging the use of less polluting edge of town parking options for motorised vehicles accessing the city itself. The County Council decision to take back on-street parking has its pros and cons, but we continue to work closely with them on the movement strategy, and it has given us additional capacity to improve and manage better our own car and cycle parking across the district. A key part of our spending proposals involve improving the customer experience, making it easy to use a variety of payment options, improving toilets, having clear signage, improving the quality of surfaces and markings, adding extra disabled bays, and for cyclists providing undercover parking with CCTV monitoring, as well as more cycle stands where needed. These improvements are ongoing, and the paper shows what we have done and are doing this year, the programme for the next financial year, and an indicative programme for the year after, and asks for approval for the major works programme, subject to council approval of the budget.
Very much indeed, Councillor Lerney. I have two councillors wanting to make deputations on this paper. The first name to come in was Councillor Wallace. Would you like to come forward and make your points and ask your questions?
Traffic is the single largest source of greenhouse gas emissions in Winchester, with the latest data showing that transport makes up 57% of all CO2 emissions in the district. In their draft local transport plan, Hampshire County Council stated that national policies on moving to zero emission vehicles won't get us far enough quickly, and a 10% reduction in car use is required between 2019 and 2030. Achieving this goal requires a coordinated response across all aspects of local transport, walking, cycling, trains and buses, to ensure that residents have improved options available for getting around. Less than 4% of the budget the Cabinet is being asked to approve today is to support alternative transport provision, and the balance of, or 96%, is for car parking. My question is, how do we start moving the focus onto improving alternative transport solutions? Now, this is normally the point at which I stand and return to my seat in the public section. However, what I just read out is in fact the statement that I made on this topic at the same meeting last year. In response, the Cabinet member advised, and I quote, only a very small amount is around alternative transport piece, but this is something we are looking at and thinking about what we can do more of. So it comes as a massive disappointment that a year later, Cabinet is being asked to approve £753,000 for parking and access improvements, of which £20,000 or less than 3% is for alternative transport provisions. And the balance of 733,000 or 97% is for cars and car parking. In fact, more is being spent on car park signage than on alternative travel. Plenty of opportunities exist for improving alternative travel. The Council's own carbon neutrality roadmap includes page after page of actions that could be taken. Please can the Cabinet member advise when we should anticipate seeing real action on alternative travel solutions? Not thinking, not plans, but real action. Because at the moment, all the noise that the administration makes about going greener faster is sounding more and more like greenwash, and our residents deserve better. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Wallace. Councillor Bolton.
Good morning, Chair and Cabinet, and thank you for letting me speak this morning. I welcome the Cabinet paper regarding the car parking and access improvement programme update. I too feel that the Council priority should be to support a vibrant local economy and enhance focus on pride in place. I'm also glad to see that customer experience and improving accessibility is high on those priorities. Given the administration's introduction of overnight and higher weekend parking charges and the need for greater access to park and walk car parks in order for residents to avoid the central car park charges, would it be possible to accelerate the replacement of the elevators in the Chesil car park to ensure fair access for all? The scheduled replacement date of 27/28 is way too far in the future and likely to mean the lift will be increasingly inoperable over the next 4 years. The significant cost mentioned to upgrade the Brooks car park is of concern, especially as there is no provision in this document for its upgrade. When will this be scoped out and costed to ensure transparency regarding the true cost of this programme? Especially as the Brooks is trying to grow their retail offer and offer a better choice to the district residents. The Middlebrook Street car park is scheduled for an upgrade. How is this impacted by the redevelopment of central Winchester? How do these plans work alongside the regeneration of the area? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Bolton. Councillor Learning, a set of questions for you.
Thank you. I think it's important to say that this is very much the capital programme, which is attached to just part of the Council's carbon neutrality action plan and our general programme to go greener faster. The expenditure in here it does not reflect, for example, spending of SIL, which other movements, which is connected to the movement strategy. I also feel that we need to remember that people are paying to use our car parking and they deserve to have a good experience out of it. And we do need to maintain our car parking to a good standard. We need to keep it safe and we need to keep it up to modern standards. Councillor Bolton mentioned, for example, the lifts in Chesil. I think I'll ask officers to comment further on that. But those kind of aspects of parking are important to keep up to date. I think the proposals for spending in here today are actually relatively modest. Clearly, we do have some implications of much bigger spending items coming forward, particularly around the Brooks. And again, I'll ask officers to update those listening today and those in the room on where we are with that. But I do feel that as part of encouraging people to access the town in other ways, this is only a small part of it. It doesn't reflect our charging plans. It doesn't reflect what we're doing with the county in terms of the conversations we're having with them. It doesn't include things like our sustainable travel officer and the work they're doing, which all come from different budgets. This is a programme attached to a budget. We will be having an update of the parking and access strategy, and I think we do need to use that as an opportunity to draw in some of these strands to give us greater clarity around what we're doing in terms of access to the city more generally, particularly those walking and other non-motorised modes. So I'll pass over to Andy Hickman and Campbell Williams for the detailed response on Councillor Bolton's comments.
Yes, thank you. The lift refurbishment or the lift replacement works being dealt with by our asset management team. But I know that they have recently reassessed those lifts and they believe they've got a bit more life in them, hence the revised dates. But I can talk to them. I understand that they are more reliable more recently. We have a good contract in place for maintenance and reporting faults. So hopefully that's better. And we're obviously looking at extending the operational times of those as well. With regard to the Brooks, we're working very closely with the Yarrow Estates in terms of how we manage and operate that car park, and those discussions are ongoing. But we are about to commission a study of their handling unit, and there's actually some funding in this programme to enable that work to do, which will then better inform what we can do and how expensive it's going to be, or hopefully not. But it will give us the information we need to be able to make those decisions going forward. In terms of the other thing, I think was Middlebrook Street. We do have some immediate work that we need to do in there to keep that car park safe and suitable for usage. So we do have to do those works now, regardless of what's going on the regeneration side of things.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Hickman.
Since you raised this last time, we've made an immediate change in the lifts now operate until 8 o'clock in the evenings. We do have to still amend the signing in there to reflect that, but we have got on our list to do. Sundays are more complicated because of the way our staff are contracted to work, and we don't have contracted staff on a Sunday as such, so we have to rely on staff working on overtime to do that. But we are looking at it to see if we can do it. But obviously the limited amount of resource we have in on a Sunday is focused on sort of operational management things and some limited enforcement that we do on Sundays as well. So yes, we are looking at it, but I have got some contractual issues to sort out first.
I'd like to add to that a further thing we're looking at is providing more disabled spaces and parent and toddler spaces on the ground floor, which obviously makes it easier for people to avoid using the lift altogether, which is much more preferable.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Lerny, and Councillor Porter.
I'll ask a question about lighting. We've talked about the safety of car parks, and certainly well-maintained car parks feel much safer, but also they are practically lit in many ways, and it's very reassuring when you go back to a car park in the dark that it is adequately lit. Could you just explain how this money will contribute to any lighting improvements, or do you have any planned, or do you think it's adequate as it is?
As somebody who generally comes in by the bus, walks or cycles, then I don't use the car parks very much in the evening, so I do rely on others to keep me informed about whether there are issues. I don't believe we have any significant lighting upgrades planned, but I might be corrected. But certainly if issues around lighting are raised in any particular car parks, then we will have a look at that.
The contrary, actually, the one I use is very good, which is Chesil. It lights up as you go to it, so which is very light saving. I just wondered if there's anything in a similar way.
So there is some budget in here actually indicative of £120,000 in Chesil to improve the lighting in there because we want to make sure that's as safe as we can be, and that's scheduled for replacement at the moment in June, July 2024.
If next winter, excellent.
On the subject of lighting, some of our car parks are included in the Hampshire PFI in terms of how they're lit. And Hampshire has just announced that they're considering further reductions in lighting levels from 80%, from 65% dimming to 80% dimming, and also extending. I don't know if this is directly relevant. In some car parks, they're changing the hours as well. So I don't know. Do we have control over the level of lighting, or will we get caught by those dimming changes and need to agree something different with Hampshire?
Yeah, we have control over that decision. So they will consult us before they make any changes in our car parks, although the lighting is in the PFI, because we do get really good value for money from that PFI for lighting replacements and energy costs. We do have full control over that. So we can decide what we want to do in our car parks. I mean, generally speaking, with lighting, just as a point, LED lighting isn't as bright as the old lighting. So we you know, and that's part of our decisions about energy requirements and things. But our lighting is fully compliant in all of our car parks, even though it's not as bright as it used to be. And we're very aware of the need to make them feel safe and use PIR lighting as well, so it goes off when it's not being used. So this will all be taken into account in our future decisions and our spending plans.
That's great. I think we would want reassurance that we won't default to the reductions that county's talking to, and we will look to maintain a good level of lighting in our car parks, even if the level of the lighting in the streets near our car parks may not be what it once was. Any other comments or questions? Debate. Anybody wish to debate the paper in front of us? Councillor Thompson.
Just a few comments, really. I welcome this paper. As someone who regularly attends the Winchester Bid board meetings on a monthly basis, one of the things that does come up is the state of our car parks. And obviously with the increase in parking charges, I do believe that we should actually be maintaining the car parks that we own up to a safe and good quality standard. Particularly as we tend to be charging slightly more for those car parks. So I'm very happy to support the upgrade. I'd also like to point out that, of course, this paper refers to the upgrade of some of our public toilets as well. And again, the toilets are a really important overall. If someone arrives and they need to go to the loo and use our facilities, they want those facilities to be clean and well maintained. And actually that really means that if they are, then we are more likely to have repeat visits, and it helps our visitor and our visitor economy, and also for our residents when they do come in and need to use our public toilets. So I think that is a really important part of this paper. The signage too, actually, signage has been mentioned today, but of course we do have differential parking charges, and we are really keen that residents and visitors alike know that they have an option to and can be directed to a cheaper tariff in different areas of the city. And so I really do think that is important. So I'm very happy to support this paper, and I welcome it being brought before us today. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Thompson. Anyone else want to say something? Councillor Cutler.
Well, I think Councillor Thompson has said most of what I wanted to say. I'm rather surprised that Councillor Wallace should be advocating that we don't spend money on car parking at all and don't cover up our maintain our requirements for health and safety, in particular, our actual policy that the park and walk policy, an approach for the outer car parks does require the signage, despite what he says about it being a lot of money to spend on signage. And I also very much welcome the pay machine upgrade, particularly in my own ward. We've had significant problems with that. The reduction in the use of cash and improved machines is terribly important. We do need, if we are charging for our car parks, to provide the service that public expect.
Councillor Westwood. Thank you, Leader. I just wanted to make a few comments around the greenwashing statement that we heard in this paper. And there are numerous things that this council does that are outside the scope of this paper that address the greenness and improvements that we want to see within this city. Just specifically on this paper, it's absolutely vital that we invest in our parking in the city. And we've heard before at this committee and others how the centre, our businesses in the centre, are actually thriving, really thriving in a difficult economic environment and performing and outperforming many other areas. So investment in the car parks is absolutely required, and in that respect I support this paper. To address some of the points that Councillor Wallace made, which seem to primarily relate to the city area, although he's a councillor in the Meon Valley area, I am a councillor within the city area, one of the wards. There is significant investment going on in terms of improving some of the crossing of the arterial routes that come into the city. So, for example, we've invested in crossings on Andover Road, and we are currently progressing a new crossing and a trial on the Romsey Road, connecting up different areas of the city. Probably not many people know this here, but I also chair the Winchester Walking Strategy Group, and the latest figures I have from that group are that 57% of journeys in this city are made on foot. And so the continued investment that we make outside of the park in other areas is so important. So we are currently working on a scheme to improve the walkability and livability in a certain section of the city, related to some of the Mini Holland work that was done 18 months, 2 years ago, where the funding was withdrawn by the government once we had a great scheme in place to connect our city. I also think in terms of the signage, then signage is not just for cars, and I've had this discussion in the cabinet meetings that we've had in discussing this paper before it's been brought for decision here today. So, as chair of the Walking Strategy Group, I have done with my group an audit of the park and walk car parks and the direction we give and the information we give to help people get safely from the park and walk car parks to the centre of the city. And some of that investment in signage, I've had the discussion with the officers before, can be directed to improving the signage for people as well as cars in terms of promoting better use of those park and walk car parks. So my point I'm trying to make here is I support the investment of parking in the city because it's so important to the economy of the city. I support the policy of making the park and ride an attractive alternative so we can manage the air quality within the city but still provide the central places for those people that need to use those. And I point, Councillor Wallace, to the many other schemes and budgets that we have in place that are promoting green activities across the city, and that would also include a significant investment in the open spaces within the city, whether that be the open spaces in the outer areas such as Oram's Arbour and others, or indeed within the River Park area itself. So I think this council is doing significant work in promoting green activity and moving towards greener travel within the city. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Westwood. Any other debate? Councillor Lunny, any final thoughts and comments?
Thank you, and like to thank my colleagues for their support. Clearly, this is a very important area of the council's work. It brings in a lot of income, which allows us to spend on our public spaces, our toilets. It helps us make this a better city, and it helps support the economies across the district. Alresford, Bishop's Waltham, Denmead, it isn't just about the town, although that tends to be where all the focus is. We do need, I think, and the point has been made, to probably do a better job of packaging up all the work we're doing in transport, and thinking about the parking and access strategy, which, as I say, is due for an update soon. I think we do need to have a look at the format of that and see whether we can actually make better use of that as a more rounded document. We do have the movement strategy, clearly with the county who we work with, but that is city focused. We have the LC Whip coming up, which is finally now making progress, which will cover the district as well as the city itself, and we're also looking at improving those city parts of that local cycling and walking infrastructure plan. So I think probably packaging up this better and maybe coming back next year with a more rounded view of all the work the council's doing on parking and access, rather than, as has been said, a focus on essentially what is the capital programme for works.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Lenny. Indeed, the paper we have in front of us today is for the parking major works programme. It's not for everything that we're doing, and as you rightly say, there's a large amount of community infrastructure levy, section 106, and results of joint work with the county on Active Travel England bids that is also being put into our district as well. And I think I was also very pleased to hear that we'll be looking at improving facilities for disabled and family parking as well. And overall, the basic concept of saying that even though it is a priority to make it easy and attractive for people to use other methods of travel, more sustainable methods of travel to come to our cities and market towns, if we do have a car park, then we need to do it properly. And even though there are heavy cuts planned for the maintenance of roads, and the roads may be falling apart that people use to get to our car parks, but at least when people arrive there, hopefully the car park will be a decent standard, even if nothing outside the car park is. I think this is a really helpful overview. I think your point of saying it would be really helpful to have an overview that includes all the other work that we're doing to drive sustainable transport is well made. The recommendations in front of us are that we approve 753,000 for the car park major works programme for 24-25, subject to full council approval of the budget and capital investment strategy in February. That we delegate to the head of programme and place, in consultation with the corporate head of asset management and the cabinet member for climate emergency, authority to make minor amendments to the programme in order to meet the maintenance and operational needs of the parking service throughout the year, and procure the work set out in the report, and evaluate and conclude the required processes, and then delegate to the head of programme and place, in consultation with the cabinet member for the climate emergency, approval to agree an evaluation model, seek tenders and complete the process for a contract to run and provide car park payment and related back office systems. So that's the decision in front of us today. Cabinet, are you agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you very much indeed. The last item on the agenda is to note the future items for consideration by Cabinet as shown on the February forward plan. Are you happy to do that? Good, thank you very much indeed. Happy to note. So those are noted. I therefore think we've covered all the items of business in front of the agenda today. On the agenda today, thank you very much to the members of the public for coming to make their deputations. Thank you for visiting councillors for their comments as well. Thank you, Cabinet and officers, for all the hard work that's gone into making these papers ready today. And I declare the meeting closed.